Hey, did you hear about that new Android app?
No, which one?
No.
Yeah, it's called Hiss, Pop, and Explode.
But it only works on Samsung?
Yeah, that's right. Samsung.
That's their preferred vendor.
And this just in, Russia is importing hundreds of thousands of Samsung phones for the war effort. They're going to lob them at people.
They're going to secretly plant them in people's enemy pockets.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for that story, but I guess this first one is a story of hacker theft, right?
Yeah. So the first one is hacker steals $566 million worth of crypto from the Binance bridge.
What's the Binance bridge?
Well, so Binance is a crypto chain. So there's exchange. So there's all sorts of exchanges out there. We've seen tons of thefts happen which is surprising because we talk about like crypto chains and how they're, completely immutable, meaning, once something is on the chain, it can never be changed.
Right.
And it should make things easier to track. And then we see a lot of thefts happening with, money getting squandered away and people can't seem to find where it went. So,
well, friends don't let friends use Binance.
Right?
Got no problem here.
So exchanges, I have some experience with this. Exchanges come in different varieties and stripes. In the early days, it was the Wild West, and there was lots of amateurs running exchanges. Now there's some well-established exchanges. Binance is probably one of the more but it's offshore, so I don't trust it as much. Coinbase is the US based, probably the most prominent, but there's lots of exchanges, but your coins are only as safe as the exchange they're in, just like your data is only as safe as the cloud it's in. And there's lots of these hacks going on. It used to be that the exchanges themselves were being hacked and being forced into liquidation. Cryptopia, for example, out of New Zealand many years ago went away. But these bridges is how they transfer a coin around, and they're subject to exploit. And that's what this was.
So now, this has been a sort of a concern of mine ever since I heard about blockchain and how cryptocurrency works, is that everything's great until it gets hacked.
Yeah.
And, people would tell me, oh, it's not going to get hacked. It's not going to get hacked. Can't get hacked because it's all in the open and everything,
right.
Blah, blah, blah. All right. But obviously people are stealing coin.
Right.
Well, they're getting it in transit.
Right. And I guess the moral of the story would be just be careful where your money is, obviously. If you don't understand this whole cryptocurrency thing, you probably shouldn't be putting a whole ton of money into cryptocurrencies because you don't know whether it's just going to disappear tomorrow. So,
right.
Amen. Don't play with any money you're not willing to lose.
Yeah, especially because Uncle Al told you to invest,
Right.
You got to invest in crypto.
You got to get these coins.
All right. Does this affect our listeners in any way unless they have this particular type of currency?
Yeah, I think we've already just said that you got to be concerned about,
right.
Where the money is. And data and money in this case are kind of fungible. You can pretend that the Bitcoin is, or the cryptocurrency is data. If you don't know where your data is being held and how it's being protected, it's at risk.
Yeah.
And the same is true of your cryptocurrency.
Right.
Okay. All right. Good enough. Cautionary tale.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in this particular case, we always talk about having strong passwords and that sort of stuff. And everybody who has like a crypto wallet probably has a really strong password, especially if they're listening to this show.
Right.
But I think the problem we run into is there's still underlying issues with the bridges themselves and with the crypto market. So it's still, you could do the world in protecting your own wallet and then still have issues. So just be careful.
All right. So now let's get to the source of the joke this morning or this afternoon.
Right.
This is I think it's a blog post, right? So this is from phonearena.com. Samsung phones blowing up at pandemic rates, urging return of removable batteries. And Samsung responds. So yeah, there's some pictures of a Jeep on fire and the remnants of a thing. I guess that was from 2016.
Was Samsung's response, "Help, my Jeep's on fire"?
Right.
Yeah. Well, that was actually from the Galaxy Note 7 disaster.
Yeah.
One of those things. Yeah, in the old days. But apparently some of the batteries in older, in some cases newer Samsung phones are blowing up. And I would urge you to watch the YouTube video that's there, because this is a guy that he collects phones, and I don't know as if it's for his job or whatever, but he's got every phone that was ever made put on a rack and just sort of sitting there. And these reports came in of Samsung in particular phones swelling. And if they swell, they're, the chance that they could explode is higher. Mm-hmm. So first comes the swelling, then comes the boom, and you could die. So it's kind of an important thing. So he looked and he looked and he looked in his thing. It's, sure enough, here's like a 2-year-old, whatever, G, whatever, that, or S, what a Galaxy S something that is swelling. And I guess it has to do with if you keep it on the shelf and you don't charge it and discharge it constantly, some sort of corrosion occurs in the electrolyte that releases the energy from the battery, and it literally swells and it could go boom.
So I did some research on this. We always try and cross-reference as much as we can to make sure these articles are legit.
Right.
And I found one on Frostbite.com, same exact reference, where somebody said, hey, yeah, we actually checked. We had a bunch of Samsung phones at the office that were, sitting in storage that weren't used anymore. And all of them that were over 3 years old had this issue, where if they're just sitting on the shelf, they then start to swell up and then potentially will explode or start a fire. Wow. So, yeah, you want to be careful with those. If you have Samsung phones that you aren't using anymore, probably a good idea to
recycle.
First off, format them. But secondly, so if you can turn them on, format them. But if not, there's a lot of places that will actually take old phones. I know for like abuse victims and that sort of stuff, lots of places will take old phones and recycle them and use them for that.
Yeah, but you certainly don't want them to explode in anybody's. So
true.
If they're being used.
Yeah, if they're being used, they're fine. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that they say is that how do you dispose of these things? And you have to get a specific kind of fireproof jacket to put it in order to dispose of it properly.
Yep.
Well, most places, most towns have a hazardous disposal, at least here in the Northeast, have a weekend where you can bring turpentine and paint thinner
old batteries
and things like that.
And,
batteries and canisters. That might be the kind of thing. These batteries might have to be that kind of dangerous material.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Now, did we hear what the official response was from Samsung?
No, what was it?
Yeah, my Jeep is on fire.
What was it? Do you know it?
No, I read through it. Well, it's funny. I read through the Frostbite article, and they said Samsung, in essence, blew this guy off and has not given him a response in over 50 days.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, I haven't seen anything else.
Yeah, that's right. And I watched the video, and in the video, the guy says that Samsung was like, "Oh, can you send those to us?" He's like, "Okay," and he sends them, and then he's like, "Any idea when I can get those back?" Yeah, we're looking into it. We're looking into it. So he never got him back.
Oof.
Yeah.
What phones? I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Yeah, what phones? Phones? Yeah. So this is a real danger. I think this is something that it is security, because physical security, meaning your security, is security.
100%.
Right? And it's something that you should be aware of.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm in Boston, right? I'm starting a sort of a New England tour, and you guys and I had dinner last night down in South Boston. So before I left, I took 2 old Samsung phones that were sitting around, and I basically laid them down in my garage with like a 10-foot radius of concrete around them.
Because you wanted them to fight it out?
Yeah, exactly. So, 2 go in, 1 comes out.
It'd be interesting to know if one or both of them is on fire when I get home. Yeah.
That's awesome.
All right, what's next?
Vishing.
I think we talk the vishing.
What's vishing?
Vishing. I swear, I love the fact, we're going to go through a couple different acronyms, but I love the fact that in the security world, everything becomes an acronym. Vishing is voice phishing. So...
No, it's better than Toad.
That's not even an acronym. It's like a portmanteau, isn't it? Like video phishing.
Yeah, it sounds
voice phishing.
So voice phishing, almost
voice phishing.
To me, I always thought of as social engineering, but whatever. Voice phishing now apparently is a thing. So this next article is about a new wave of vishing or social engineering attacks. where you will get a call from your bank, quote unquote, air quotes, and they will have certain information about you, and they'll say, hey, listen, for you to get access to your accounts again, you're going to need to download this app. When they download the app and run it, A, when you go to log into your bank now, they pick up your username and password, but B, it backdoors the SMS messaging on the system so that when the 2FA code, the multi-factor authentication code, is sent to your phone, they can now see the multi-factor authentication.
Jeez.
Yeah. So, I know we push MFA all the time. We, say it's okay to have it sent to your phone. And it is, as long as you're not installing spyware on your phone so that everybody can see that. So,
well, yeah. I mean, our listeners know better, don't they?
We hope.
And this is only for Android.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so this is where like constantly
for Samsung
because it requires heat.
Needs a little heat to run. Yeah, so this is. I mean, we always talk about iPhones probably being a really good platform to keep a lot of things secure. Maybe someday, 10 years from now, they'll find they're not as secure. But for now, we see a lot of these things attacking Android. Yeah.
So. Social engineering, you're right. This is social engineering. Social engineering is any time someone tries to use social norms against you to get you to do things that will deliver to them something that you wouldn't want to deliver to them. So that's
right.
the textbook dictionary probably.
Yeah.
Definition. But it takes many, many forms. So any con, any trickery, even sales might be considered, a form of social engineering. But in that case, it's not malicious typically.
Yep.
Well, you're not the salesman that I've worked for.
Examples that come up quite often is you've got to look for, they're trying to get you to do something that maybe they could have done themselves if they were who they said they were. They have urgency. Oh, you have to do this right away. This is very important. And they urge you many times not to consult with anybody else and not to look, or you can't speak about this. So there's been examples of people who are involved in the healthcare community, the mental health community, who will get contacted and be told, you've missed a court date and you're in contempt of court, and there's going to be a sheriff knocking at your door if you don't pay this fine immediately. And don't talk to anybody because the case involved a minor, and I can't believe you missed the court date. And these people go to court a lot so that it happens. They're being targeted more now. And so it goes in waves, but you always have to be ready for, okay, how do I verify this outside of talking to the person who might be the attacker? Well, I could call the courts. I could call the sheriff's department. I could call my local police department. In the case of this, you could go to the website of your bank and call the number on the back of your credit card, or log into the website and say, is this a real thing? And it's better to do that and validate on the other side and waste some time than it is to get hacked in this way. So we're really coming up to a new era where you need not two-factor authentication. You do need that. Let's not say that we don't need that, but you need an alternate channel of communication to validate that what you're being told is true.
So I should start a new segment on the show and maybe even make a theme song for it called Carl's Mom's Latest Scam, or Scam of the Week, right?
Right.
So my mother is in her 80s.
Is your mother a scammer?
No, she is the Scam-E.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she forwards to my brother and I this. It's an email that includes a JPEG, right? It's not even a PDF.
Oh, is it that nice Nigerian prince?
Nope. But this is called New Services or something like that. And there's an invoice JPEG, and it says, "Dear user, we appreciate you choosing our services. Your personal subscription," and then in all caps, Geek Squad Care, will expire today. The subscription will auto-renew as per plan selected at your end. Please review your purchase summary below. And by the way, the grammar and the capitalization is atrocious. There's a customer assistance 888 number. It says billed to, customer ID, invoice number, order number. And it says this email confirms that your subscription has been renewed for another 1 year with Geek Squad for $413 on October 11, 2022. It will auto renew, blah, 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 unless you turn it off no later than 24 hours before the end of subscription period. You know,
Not 24 hour.
no, not 24 hour. So
But you can't count on the typos.
No, I know.
I know it's true.
Can't count on that.
However, I said, listen, if you want, if Geek Squad was never in your, thing, first of all, I don't think it's a subscription. I think you go to Best Buy, you go to the Geek Squad counter, you say, fix my computer, right?
They do have a subscription for total support that'll include installing TVs, but it's not $413, right?
Well, she never did that.
No.
She doesn't even know what she's got. She's never been to a Best Buy in her life. So, she's all concerned, right? So there you go. That's the Carl's Mom scam of the week.
Yeah, scam of the week. Like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So watch out for that.
It's a crazy world. Well, I mean, if you go back 100 years, 50 years, they were con artists, and they had to be in your presence to get you.
Right.
But now they've got to get through your spam box, your inbox, and you know spam filters are really protecting a lot of people from these things. But you still got to be prepared for when they get through, because they look legit. The reason they get through is because they look legit.
Yep.
Right.
You just got to watch that spelling. Grammar. Haven't these, whoever they are, people heard of Grammarly?
Right?
But the problem is they're probably not using an English version of an operating system.
The ones that have are getting hundreds of millions of dollars instead of just thousands of dollars. So
yeah,
there are people who do this that have no accent when they call you, who have perfect grammar, who don't make those kinds of rookie mistakes, and they're very convincing. And so you need some protection, some armor beyond that.
Right.
All right. What's next, guys?
Fortinet.
Fortinet.
I like Fortinet.
Yeah, so we've used Fortinet many a times in the past. For those of you who haven't heard of Fortinet, Fortinet's more of a corporate firewall.
Okay.
Although, Patrick and I were running them at the houses, but whatever. But it's more of a corporate firewall. So you probably, if you're an end user listening to this show and you just manage your own home firewall, you probably don't need to worry about this. But there's a brand new authentication bypass with Fortinet. And this will be our 3 questions of the week spotlight. So this is the questions of the week are, how do I know it affects me? And what should I do if I am affected? And what are the downsides? What could actually happen? What are the bad things that could happen? Right. So in this particular case, this is an authentication bypass on the administrative port. So all of these firewalls, you have the ability to obviously administer them. Typically, it's done over a browser. So you're going to connect into the admin port. You're going to open up your browser, connect into the admin port. You're going to log in as an administrator. And then you get to change things like port forwarding and, what types of services you allow and don't allow through the firewall, all that good stuff. Right. Well, in this particular case, you have the ability to bypass that authentication. No username and password needed. And then you can run whatever commands you want on the back end.
Not good.
So that's the what it is. How do you know if it affects you? Well, if you're running any Fortinet devices that are FortiOS 7.2.1 all the way down to 7.0, FortiProxy 7.2.0 all the way down to 7.0, or FortiSwitch Manager from 7.2 to 7.0, you're affected. Right? So these are the devices that you need to be careful of.
All right. So here's a question. What if you're in a big corporation, you have no idea what the IT department is using. Maybe they're using Fortinet, maybe they're not. You don't know. What do you do about that? I mean, you can hope that the IT security people are paying attention and listening to Security This Week, because that would be kind of smart.
I have good advice for that person. Have your resume ready.
Wow.
Well, because it's their job to protect against that stuff. But you raise an very important point, because if you're just a worker, you probably have no control. But if you're in charge of the company, a part owner, an investor, somebody who's in charge of sales, but you have a vested interest in the company,
right,
it's important to know what platforms you're running, because then when you hear about these stories, you'll know. We're going to talk about another platform in a minute. That's an email platform most people have never heard of, but a lot of people run based on hosted email. And so maybe the theme for this show is, know what you're depending on, because if you don't, you have no idea. You could see this article 3 days before your network administrator and warn them, but you got to know first that you have that as a platform.
Well, or not, you can just forward everything on to your IT staff.
Then
people
you're the boy who cries wolf.
Yeah, and then you're the a-hole, right?
Right.
One of the ways that we figure out whether a company is using a technology is we look at their job postings.
Yeah.
And we look at the resumes of the people who work at those companies. So if I know the resume says, oh, I'm an expert in this technology and this firewall, Fortinet is something in their experience, and it's a good bet that they're using Fortinet.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Now, coming back to what you should do about this, you should patch. There's a patch already out available for it. A POC, proof of concept of how to breach the devices, is going to be released soon. So if you're not auto patching those devices, you absolutely want to patch them.
How about some free advice? Never let your router or your firewall be administered over the internet. Let's start with that.
Well, that's a great idea. That is a great idea. So that's one of the workarounds, is to make sure that these types of ports, which shouldn't be accessible, and unfortunately, last Shodan search shows 140,000 of them accessible on the internet.
Wow.
But you should not allow these administrative ports to be accessible on the internet.
And all you really have to do is put up a VPN, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there's no need for you to have these ports available. Open up a VPN into the office or whatever, and then manage from the inside. It's always a good way to go.
Always a good idea.
Much better.
All right. Zimbra is a song by Talking Heads.
Zimbra.
On the album Fear of Music. And it's really cool.
I did not know that.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this Zimbra exploit about a month ago. And we wanted to bring it back up because it's if you're not listening to Security This Week, or somebody's not, they should be. We talked about this almost a month ago, where you should patch your Zimbra mail server. So this is an email server.
Right.
But the problem that they were running into was when you send an email to the Zimbra server, if you have an antivirus checking attachments, what'll happen is that antivirus is exploitable when it extracts, let's say, a zip, so that it can pull out all the stuff on the inside and check it for a virus. They're then co-opting the antivirus tool to actually deploy and overwrite system files and that sort of stuff. So it allows you to compromise the system. So the reason we bring this back up is because we talked about it a month ago, and we said, hey, go out there and patch and you're good. Not a problem. And then it still has coming back to a big issue on the internet, with lots of companies who either haven't gone out to patch.
Does Shodan show how many are unpatched still?
I haven't gone to look,
okay.
But I have seen a resurgence of articles around it.
I'm sure it's a non-zero number.
Oh, yeah. So if you haven't gone out to patch. Well, and the other issue we're running into is I think a lot of people don't know the platforms are running, right, Patrick?
Right.
So they're
exactly
like, are we running Zimbra? I don't know. Are we running Fortinet? I don't know. So coming back to your advice, you should understand those platforms you have that the company relies on.
Wow. Yeah.
I sense a theme.
Same old advice. Know what you're doing.
Right.
And don't click on that email link.
So I think our last story is about the attacks on the airports, which hit the main news. So I'm sure everybody's heard something about this. There was a denial of service against a number of websites for airports around the country.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep. 14, I think, local airports, something along those lines.
Yep. LaGuardia.
Massive denial of service.
I don't know if this is relevant, but I was coming home from Norway a couple of weeks ago and flying through Boston. And at Logan, when I landed, I tried to connect to the Logan Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And the page just didn't look right to me.
Wow.
It wasn't the usual page that I got from Logan Wi-Fi.
It's called
Cyrillic.
Cyrillic.
Official, but it's Cyrillic. Yeah, no, it did not look right to me, and so I didn't connect via that.
Good for you.
And I just tried it again, and I got the Massport Logan Airport page that I was used to looking for, and I went through that. But I swear to God, somebody was phishing.
It's possible.
I believe that.
Very, very possible.
It's very common in an airport, I think, for people to spin up access points and try and catch travelers as they're weary travelers as they land and connect at things. So
here's one piece of advice. You should always, before going into an airport or before leaving your house, turn off auto connect to known access points. And here's why. And Troy Hunt told me this. the default AT&T Wi-Fi access point is called ATT_Wi-Fi.
Mm-hmm.
And so your phone is just looking for those names.
Yes.
And so if it sees one, it'll connect to it if you have that auto connect going on, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't want that because he told us about this device called a Pineapple, which is a little Wi-Fi router impersonator. And he can just walk through an airport with this thing. All these people's phones connect to it. And what's the first thing they do when they connect? They phone home. They try to connect to email and Twitter and Facebook. And now you've got email, Twitter, and Facebook passwords, and you just collect them.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not as gloom and doom as it was when Troy first started talking about it, because Troy's been warning about this for quite a long time. There's a lot of new measures that have been put in place. If you're using HTTP on most of your websites, it means that the man-in-the-middle attack doesn't have as much teeth. There's also a technology that Dwayne will probably know the initials, where the first time I connect to a site, I'm vulnerable to a man-in-the-middle, but after that, even if they're in the middle of the traffic, they're not going to be able to do SSL splits to peel off my encryption.
I had an SSL split once with hot fudge and pineapple and
delicious.
Sauce. I think that was in Vegas. But this is part of the arms race. So Troy's been warning about, transmission security. That's really the root of it. And the Wi-Fi Pineapple is a tool that hackers can use, but there's other tools out there. There's Kismet and other hacking tools that we use for wireless security. But really the best advice is what Troy said. Plus, you should never auto connect to a network that doesn't have authentication. And best that you don't auto connect to networks in general. It's a pain to have to type in the password, but it's protecting you. So if you connect to Starbucks,
hotels are notorious for that, aren't they?
They are.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah. They have no password connections.
Well, let's take an example where you are right now. You're in a hotel, and if you use their Wi-Fi, what's going to happen is it's going to use a captive portal to connect you.
Right.
And so if I can get a captive portal that looks like theirs, which is very easy to do, I can trick you into thinking it's available in the lobby.
Right.
But typically your guest services Wi-Fi is not available in the lobby.
Right.
And so you wouldn't know that maybe.
Yeah.
So, or maybe you're in the conference center and you're like, oh, let me see if I can connect to the room Wi-Fi.
Right.
And I'm going to let you log in no matter what last name and room number you put in. And I'm going to connect you on, and now I'm man in the middle. All your internet traffic goes through me. Again, it's not an instant I own you button.
Right.
But if you hit a site with HTTP, if you hit a site that doesn't use a modern SSL and is using old style SSL, there's ways for us to attack it. And in some of our services, we do just that.
So if it's an unsecured network, in other words, it doesn't require a password, does that mean that all of the traffic, every packet is clear text?
That's a good question.
Well,
is it clear text? There's no SSL?
It is, yes.
Wait, so the data packets I can decrypt the data packets going to the wireless access point because there's no password. However, if you're using SSL to connect to your bank, that's a channel between your device and your bank. Has nothing to do with the access point, nothing to do with the network itself.
All right.
Yeah. Now, the only thing they could do is then try and say, hey, you can't reach your bank.
But anybody who can receive the radio signal. If you're in an open access point, then all the packets are in the world. But if they're encrypted packets, then they're still protected.
Right. Because I am actually in Boston at a Marriott, and they have an open Wi-Fi, but it's the only one. So when I look at other networks, I don't see any other ones.
Yep.
So I'm probably safe, but still, I don't like the fact that it's an unencrypted
That's bad.
connection. And is there any possible way that anybody can take my stuff if I'm using SSL with everything? So they'd have to man in the middle attack.
Yeah, they would have to man in the middle attack you. And honestly, what I typically do when I'm traveling, Carl, is call down to the front desk and ask, hey, what's the Wi-Fi? What's the Wi-Fi name, to make sure I'm connecting to the right one. If they give me the same name, I'll connect to it. And then I make sure everything I do is over either SSL or VPN.
And don't remember the password. Don't remember it. Reconnect every time.
Yeah, don't remember the network. Yeah.
That's good to know. Forget this network. Those 3 words are your friend.
Right.
Forget this podcast. It didn't happen.
It's inconvenient, which means it's secure.
It is. Yeah.
True.
Yes, you should.
All right, guys. What a great week. And it was great having dinner with you too last night and catching up. I think Kelly's sufficiently horrified about our lives.
Well, we failed in our mission if she wasn't horrified.
That's right.
Take it easy, guys.
All right. I'll see you next week.
See you guys.
Bye.